Yeah.
My NH. Anyways, this is what
Lots of stories.
We're gonna, all right, go ahead and get started. So call the meeting to order. Our first one on January 28th, which is looking back quite a while, but 2025. Item number one is approval of minutes. Is there a motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor, say aye. Approved.
I watched the video and read it.
Item two, the item I've been waiting for since December, whenever it was. Discussion of possible action regarding election of chair and vice chair.
I think you're doing a fine job. Says the vice chair. That's not.
Hey,
Jess, are you interested?
I am not.
Brandon?
Well, as you can see from my week, I couldn't commit to something like
Oh,
that. I would let the group down.
why don't we nominate me?
That's what she gets for not being here.
That would be fair. So who for vice chair? You want to be vice chair?
Sure.
Okay. Here we go. Cody,
Hey,
who's sitting in for
you
it?
just tell it. I nominate Cody. He has citizens participation. Out of county.
So Paul, is that a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. You're gonna pay a huge price for it.
For this, you will pay a terrible price.
Okay. We just did nominations for chair and vice chair.
You're elected. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
You sure? Okay. Items 3 and 4 are probably worded by somebody out of where Cody used to work at District 1. It gives us leeway to kind of discuss any. And so I'd like to kind of skip over those and jump to some of the items that were specifically put on by Paul and Ms. Hines. So let's skip over 3 and 4. We can come back to them. Let's go to item 5. Paul.
I'm trying to remember what 5 was. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just thought it might be for new employees that it might be a good idea for them to get a grasp of kind of the overall picture of the county. So I thought it might be good just to put in departmental organizational charts
That's a great
in there as maybe an appendix or something.
Yeah,
They'll have to rotate, update.
yeah, and we do those for the budget book. Have you looked at those and seen those? In the estimate of needs and stuff that we do for the budget book, that the county clerk's office puts together, there are organizational charts.
Yeah, something like that would be really nice, but, employees going through orientation don't see those,
Yeah,
those documents.
they have understanding the enormity of what's going on. I'm all for that. Any other discussion? Anybody have a problem with that? See that as an issue? Coach cycle? You're in. All right, you want to make a motion?
Sure. I move that we put org charts, departmental org charts, in the employee handbook, maybe as an appendix. However you
Yeah,
want
like
to.
an attachment.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good, motion carried. All right, good job. I like these short agenda.
So I guess the question I would have, just for further discussion regarding that item, is who would we have put together? Would we just mirror what is currently in the book provided by the clerk, or
I think.
Who's gonna create those? Just so that way.
Well, we have our
Cody.
estimate of.
We have some audience participants.
Cody, what is your feedback?
Okay, so first, on your org chart, is it gonna be listed by like a position, or are you putting names of folks in the org
It's
chart?
position.
Yeah, I'm saying position, otherwise we're gonna be modifying that thing constantly.
Well, but you could be modifying it when, elected officials decide, maybe somebody doesn't have a PIO, and then they hire a PIO, and, you make those changes. So I'm wondering, is the handbook the best place to have it? Or would it be good to just have it on the county website under each department? You could have a link there for the org chart for that organization, and then you can make sure that employee benefits have that information so they can just do a printout to give to,
That'd be fine too, just to put a link in the.
because that way you're not
handbook to it.
updating the handbook every time an elected official makes a change to their work structure.
Okay.
Yeah, well, and how it's on Info, that would be good too. Or where it's digital on people's desktop, if they have a link that they'd be able to go to.
Okay, we need to vote on withdrawing your motion, and then you'll have to make a new motion.
I withdraw my motion.
To put it into the handbook.
Make a new one to put a link into the employee handbook that will
Okay,
get
Well, we
everybody
need to
access
take
to
one
the org
vote at
charts on the website.
yeah, we need to take one vote at a time. So is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Alright.
All right, what's your new motion, please? I've forgotten already.
No, you haven't. Is there a second? Okay.
I do need it repeated, sorry.
Just to put a link to the org charts on the website into the handbook.
Second, is there a second?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Leanne. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passed. Before we go to item 6, it's just to note, item 7, Leanne took, 112 pages. And thank you. I read through it. And narrowed it down to 37. Were you able to get?
Mine was 59, so if yours is 37, I'm all for it.
Now, your item 6 is specific.
Yours.
If we look at item 6, to separate policies from procedures, correct? Now,
It's
did
a
you
handbook from policies and procedures.
Yeah.
Like a separate policies and procedures manual.
And
My number 6. Oh, never mind.
so, in discussion on item 6, which is where we are noting it's a shorter version, did you see policies versus procedures in there that could be separated out? And it's, trust me, I haven't had time to absorb it. I've read through it twice, but I didn't check for policy.
Well, there's a whole section on policies.
Yeah.
Section 2 is the entire section on policies.
Yep. Basically, section 2 was, at least in my initial one that I came up with, was section 2 was eliminated.
Oh, yeah, that would be
That would be a
separate.
separate manual.
And then compensation, leave benefits, employee safety, and then section 6 is benefits would remain as informative for, employees in regards to our,
All I did on the other sections initially was to take out some of the legalese, make it more generic for everybody, and
Right.
shorten it down.
Right.
And if you were able to shorten it even further,
Yeah.
awesome.
And I would like to point out, when you take something that in this county that like 20 years, or a few more years, how many years? Like, that's 112 pages and you reduce it down to 37. My favorite question is going to be a Butch Freeman question. What was wrong with what we had? What's wrong? So we have to individually meet with our elected official and discuss the why. And it may be that we need some examples from that book. I remember Leanne, it was like, if John worked Saturday from noon to 8, and then this Sunday, there were examples, much like some of the grade school techniques that we use. So there was a lot of stuff in there.
Yep.
We need to sell it to our elected officials individually to convince them that we think this is a better, more concrete, precise handbook. Now, that said, there's a couple of things that I do want to mention in item 7. But to separate, let's take a vote on, Paul, if you want to make a motion for separating policies and procedures.
Yes, make a motion for 2 separate binders, whatever you want to call them, binders, manuals, whatever. 1 for an employee handbook, 1 for policies and procedures.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Leanne, you look.
I'm thinking through, like it's been a long drawn out process, just a snippet of time here and there when I was going through kind of like, oh, I think that could be cut, that could be, whatever, moved. That's repetitive. And I'm just sitting here in my brain trying to think now. There's some of this, it's been so long since I've looked at it, really. I'm not, like, what's the difference between, what do you see as a difference between like a policy and a or procedure? Or how do you visualize that?
Policies
I just
and
want to make sure I
procedures are
understand what you're saying.
1 would be passed by legal. Well, I guess everything really has to be passed by legal, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's another
There's more.
thing to discuss.
I think an employee handbook is something that should be simple and straightforward for new employees to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way in which it was written before, there was some legal jargon in there that I don't think the average employee that comes in is going to have any interest in, besides the fact that it was 118 pages long. Nobody's going to read that. I didn't read it. I skimmed through it. I saw it the first time. And I was like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. I don't have time to do this. So policies and procedures would be, just that, the policies of the county in whatever aspect it is, just listed in a separate manual.
I don't have strong feelings about it one way or another. I was just trying to visualize which parts were.
Yeah, and all I did in the employee handbook was just like you said. If there was duplication, then I eliminated that. If there were 4 examples like you're talking about before, make it 1, and just shorten it. It was too much.
Coach, second.
Well, I'm not opposed to taking out duplications, but as far as starting to separate things and everything, I'll go back. We've been kicking this thing around for 6 years.
Have you?
Yes, sir. And we listened to Doug Everso from Florida do video for 4 of those years. Cody was there. But,
With 6.
you said, you go, I don't want to read that. I'll be honest with you. If it's 10 pages, more than likely most employees aren't going to read it. But if you're an employee and you're impacted by both policies and procedures, I don't know why you start separating stuff out. I mean, I'd have it all in one document, just like we currently do.
What's an example?
Okay. Well, paper scissors.
Because now we're going to have 2 books.
I will say that our employee handbook 1 is to educate employees in regards to the policies and procedures of the county. But it's also, this is what protects us in regards to any lawsuits that we have. This is what, in many cases, why I believe once we have the final draft, we just put it across legal. In many cases, if we have some type of EEOC claim or question in regards to unemployment, this is what our HR departments and this is what our legal goes back to see what our guidelines are in regards to what we've educated our employees on. And in many cases, because inevitably, if something happens and there is some type of lawsuit or unemployment, it goes back to the county commissioners. And in multiple cases, our DAs have said, well, we've never even reviewed your handbook and we don't agree. And so that's why I made the motion a few meetings ago in order for them to review this. But I do think it's important for us to narrow it down to what we all agree upon that's important.
And I
Moving
retract
forward.
what I said earlier. I didn't eliminate two. So
Yeah.
even what I did, there is some policies in here, but it was speaking, what I typed up was very general in terms of the
It needs to be
policies. Whereas
straightforward.
a policies and procedures manual would be very specific
Yeah.
Yeah.
on those things. And that's what would cover us in terms of a lawsuit.
Ultimately, excuse me, Brandon, go ahead.
No, all I was going to say is that, one thing about the handbook in the past for me is that I don't understand why we just regurgitate what's already in the statute or fair labor standards somewhere. Because regardless of what we put in the handbook, it's never going to supersede what's there anyway. So I'm always confused by that too. I mean, having 97 examples of when you clock is totally useless because, I mean, again, the Fair Labor Standards in a U.S. Code 207K is going to dictate exactly how law enforcement works. 207A is going to dictate exactly how 40-hour employee works. Having the handbook is entirely futile to me.
Well, it's something that our
same thing with-
employees sign, saying
Yeah.
that they understand that these are the
Yeah.
expectations that they have moving forward. So they're not going to understand what fair labor guidelines are. So it's important for them to understand it, and that's why they're required to sign this whenever
Yeah.
they're hired. But I agree. I think having examples when they can go to their supervisor or HR department in order to gain better understanding is
I think
it should be eliminated because it just makes it longer than.
I
it needs
think
to
I
be.
took out the thing about, I think I took out any kind of page to sign off because I didn't know
Oh.
if we still even did that. I don't remember if I did that when I was hired.
I mean, that's best practices to have them
Yeah.
sign something stating
Well,
that they
and
read
I
our
thought-
employee handbook.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And I'm aware of that happening at other places and all that, but I thought, maybe we just don't do that here anymore.
It's the point of having an employee handbook, so that way employees understand what.
My understanding, in our office or clerk's office, we haven't signed with HR.
That they read this.
And I think that's,
So it's a separate document. It's not
I
in the
believe
book
it is,
itself.
because we're with the job.
Maybe that's what I did. Maybe I signed something with Christy when she would.
I think there was actually a signature page in the back of it.
There was. Oh, that's what I'm saying. I just.
To Brandon's point, going through that manual, it's almost like an owner's manual or a user's manual, and there's lots of stuff that's in there that's really not part of traditional handbooks. So I think that's kind of what Brandon's getting at. There's lots of stuff in there that probably don't need to be. Have you guys looked at Echo or OSU or anything to see what kind of handbooks they've produced, maybe, and then
Tulsa.
Well, yeah, Tulsa's was a good example. It's like this big and a little nice pamphlet that can be handed out.
can you
and
look
made
at that
available.
one and then put that one next to the one that we currently have and flip through both of them and say, oh, they're missing this. Should we have it in there? No, we don't need that in there, so no, but this, I think we should have this in here. So then you've got kind of a starting point and then you just either add or subtract from that.
Yeah, that was part of what I did. I mean, I didn't do it like I said, this was a pretty haphazard process. I mean, when I had time and so I didn't always do the exact same thing every time I picked it up to look at it or mess with it. I just was.
Well, and I believe you need time to digest it and go through it, because I went through it a couple of days.
But now that he mentioned, do we really want 2 books? If it's been this hard to get 1 book, sort of something different done with it. I don't know. I hadn't really thought of it in that way. Then we have 2 books out there. Are we going to need to be?
What's an
But if
example?
we really get them the way we want them, then I guess they're going to be set for a long time, right?
What's an example of a policy procedure versus something that should be the employee? What might be an example that you have on your mind?
That's directed toward Paul.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm trying to look through this.
I put you on the spot.
No, that's fine.
I mean, I've got this, the one that we have now.
I'm texting Karen to see if I can get to Tulsa.
And you can look through the index of this and just, go through it yourself and see what you think ought to be in one. But for example, I mean, like 457 retirement plans. Okay, that's something that's probably in the handbook, but it's not policies. You can go through line by line and
Let me ask you
I
this.
don't think we separate them. I think we just narrow it down to where it's very easy to understand and eliminate the examples. Because if an employee wants to know what is the policy on their, attendance, or let's see what are your policies that are listed, versus a procedure in regards to their time off, they're going to go here to figure out what that looks like and be able to determine, or if they're rebuttaling against something in a lawsuit or something that, they're questioning. This is something. And so having it all together available in a very condensed way is beneficial for both the county
I'm just all for condensed.
yeah, and for the employees, so they
Right, I mean,
understand
even
what their
if that means
expectations are.
we each take a section
Mhm.
of this.
Here's the only oddity that the reason I am in favor of a policy procedure difference is because, for example, let's use, if we were to caveat every single scenario, let's use 2.16, employees' requirements for driving county vehicles. Number 5 says obey all traffic and safety laws.
I mean, that's just given. Yeah.
Well, we're not doing that. We break them. I've got deputies right now running codes for violating safety laws. So now we've got the BOCC that's made it. You see where I'm headed? So the county has put out a policy that says you can't violate safety laws. But right now I've got a deputy driving somewhere too fast trying to get somewhere. So it literally just circumvents the policy because no consideration was taken.
Yeah,
of the
but
sheriff's
he's got
office.
the authority to do that.
Well, not according to the policy. And I see what you're saying, but if
I think he does, because he's a police officer.
no, and I get that. I'm just
According
saying
to
that.
his duty, that's
No, I'm not. And that's what I'm saying, because in statute it gives them authority, but in the policy that we have doesn't. That's where I was headed earlier. So if something in statute supersedes what's in here, this is nothing more than a paperweight. In my
Well,
opinion.
and that's gonna be
So-
true, and that goes back to your original
Yeah.
point. Statutes can precede everything.
Sure. And that's more so where I'm at, is that, when they're commuting to their assignment, sure, road ban, traffic safety laws, they've got their seatbelt on. But again, like in this particular case, there's no provision that says, well, except in the case where deputy sheriffs are responding to, or David Barnes for emergency management, or whatever the case may be, is more so, and that's really where I was kind of,
Yeah.
That's where I was just, and that's just a silly example, but that's just where I was concerned that if we start policing, no pun, I mean, in that regard, I feel like we would be holding ourselves to an unreasonable standard at some point down the road. Yeah.
So,
So would it be best just to start from the very beginning and then just go section to section and determine
Yeah.
as a committee what we're going to leave, eliminate, or,
yes,
and start doing that at
right.
the next meeting?
Um,
That would probably be the most efficient way of handling this.
so that said, go ahead.
She was saying earlier about, the legalities of all of it. And I don't know, I mean, I'm sitting here trying to think. Some of you all that might be more experienced. If you have a document that, somebody may go to later for litigation, is it better for it to be super detailed, or is it better for it to be kind of vague for us to, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't mean that to be a weird question, but I'm not
Those are-
really sure.
Those are the laws, I mean, Cody's an attorney, those are the laws that are set forth by the county.
I
I
mean,
mean,
should
so
we-
for instance, here's an example that is an issue for us. So, if you eliminate policies, section 2 from the handbook, specifically one that's under 2.7 in regards to a marijuana license. So that's a big thing for us in determining whether or not we can hire somebody or not hire somebody based off of holding a medical marijuana certificate, because the positions that we hold are safety sensitive. And so we need to understand that, you know, as employers, what we can and can't do in that regard, and then what to do, you know, for, and how to counsel our employees on whether or not they can hold that license, or, you know, whether or not we need to perform drug testing, things like that, that are important for us to understand as a county, but then also understand, our employees to understand whenever they're hired. So those are, that's just an example of a policy that's important, you know.
Right.
And other things that we get asked by the presiding judge all the time, you know, for policies or procedures that they want to put in place, such as, you know, for, was the one that I had sent you that we weren't able to get to during our time, for the service dogs. You know, when we're trying to determine, you know, what is a policy or procedure in regard to a service dog. We have
Yes, Colton.
nowhere to find that thing. And so, so those are, I mean, it's, I think just starting from the beginning and then getting an understanding and just taking us each section, you know, in regards to narrowing it down, is important. Because we have to have an employee handbook so we understand how to keep the county safe, and also what our expectations are for our employees when they're hired.
We owe it to the employees as well as the taxpayers.
And the taxpayers, yes, very important.
So could you guys look at your document and Tulsa's document? And,
Yeah.
you know, there's
Again,
another
yeah.
document. Just look at them, and then ultimately, this is gonna go to the DA's office to make sure that your attorney signs off on the language. There may be language in there that's problematic, that shouldn't be in there. There may be language that should be in there, right? So why not just figure out the topics that you want covered in the handbook, send that to the DA's office and say, we want these sections, and we want to make sure that this is addressed, and if we have missed something based upon your experience and expertise in these fields, please let us know what we're missing and let them draft that. Pay them $775,000 a year. Let them draft it, send it back to you, and then you guys can either adopt that or ask them to make whatever revisions that you need made.
And they do have, I forget her name, but
Carolyn Millard, she's an expert.
she's an expert in personnel.
So, I'll make an effort to, if it's okay with everyone on this committee, to obtain a copy of the Tulsa handbook. I believe Karen Kent has it. Do you have a copy of it? Oh, you have a copy. Okay. Can you send that out to each one of us so we can have it available? And then,
I know I've got a physical copy.
okay, we just need to scan it
Yeah.
and then send it out to us.
Let me,
But we still have to finish the agenda item
Yes.
that we're on in regards to
redirect
voting.
back to item 6 here real
Yeah.
quick. Paul, do you want to
We have a motion and a second.
continue? We do have a motion and a second. We've had discussion. Would you like us to have a separate? That was your motion.
Or just wait and continue.
One policy, one procedure.
You're still gonna have to give them out to everybody, whether it's 2 documents
That's
or
true.
just one.
And that can be part of the dialogue with your attorney. Should we have this in 2 separate documents or in one? Okay.
What would you like, sir?
It's all good conversation.
I'll retract my motion. I don't care if it's necessarily in one manual or 2, so long as it makes sense and it's condensed.
And it's
Yeah.
112.
I agree.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second to.
Okay. All in favor?
Ah.
Thank you.
But that's very good conversation.
Yeah. No, that's what you're here. Item 7, Leanne, hats off to you, applause. Everybody owes her a couple of hot dogs from Coney Island. And soft drinks.
So is this
She-
Leanne's? Because I think I printed Paul's.
Yeah, we didn't do 6.
Oh, 6.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's what we just read.
No, we were talking about, that was 5.
6 is the ADA service animal.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're correct. Okay.
Your puppies.
So 6, Jessica brought that to my attention.
Yeah.
She gave me a copy of the letter from Judge Andrews dated back in November of 2023, in which he was asking if the county would adopt a policy regarding service animals in the courthouse complex. And, you know, he was giving the pluses and minuses about that. He said the Americans with Disabilities Act is very clear that only, this is what surprised me, that only service dogs and miniature horses must be allowed into a government
I used
building.
to have this.
But that would be odd to have miniature horses.
Somebody help me out. Would that not be a board of county commissioners?
So it has to do with
You have to get some
the
bigger
entire-
shooters.
Yeah, so
Right.
they had sent that to us.
They'd have to
Remember,
get
we were chairman, and I actually sent it to our
Be
HR
badged.
department in order to do some research. But then we ended up tabling it. There are many employees within the courthouse that, in our buildings that bring pets to work. And so I believe that that was what had sprung up this conversation in regards to the safety of others. And there had been a couple instances. But I didn't know, because, to answer your question, because it would be a building, procedure or a policy. If it affects all of our buildings, it affects just one. I didn't really know where to bring it. And so that's kind of the reason why nothing happened. And then there was a change in chairmanship. And so thought it'd be good to bring it for discussion in this committee to see if it's something that would be warranted for an employee handbook, or historically, what does that look like whenever there's a policy for the building?
Maybe this is just a recommendation from this body to the BOCC about what we think that policy should be.
Because it would need to affect all of our
It might
buildings.
affect people who aren't employees, right?
And really, that'd be for the
Taxpayers
PBA,
that are in
right?
here.
Sorry.
Would that end up being a policy through the PBA or
There's PA buildings.
PBA buildings, because they're owned by the county? So
Yeah.
that was, it became very complex. And so we didn't know really where to bring this up
Yeah.
for
I think
conversation.
we've seen them in jury duty, every 2 weeks, the jurors, and every once in a while.
And it may come down to
That's
posting proper signage in our buildings, which could be a BOCC recommendation in regards to, only service animals allowed. But is there a policy that needs to be adopted?
Like, this is one of those things, kind of what I was saying earlier. I mean, I'd imagine this is already laid out. I mean, does the
Where?
BOCC have it?
Yeah.
Americans with Disabilities Act?
Yes.
Yeah,
But
so I mean, so how would the BOCC supersede what they said? You see what I'm saying? It's almost like, well, you can't have a service dog, but the ADA says you can. That's like saying, well, you can't have your wheelchair, get up and walk. Like these are the things I'm talking about. We're cluttered up a handbook with stuff that's already written somewhere. I mean, there's clear policies outlined in the ADA for service dogs and what their allowances are, so.
But they were trying, the presiding judge was trying to prevent others from bringing in just pets.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that-
you can't ask them anyway.
But here's the problem. Exactly.
You can't ask.
If you go to ADA,
Yeah.
these pets are then going to be service animals. You cannot ask what
Or crochet a service
It's
dog
ability
sweater
to-
right now.
there's no certification
Yeah.
needed, no paper, no nothing. So it's going to be service
So is it a
animals.
matter of just putting up signage? I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I don't mean to be argumentative.
yeah, and I think this is a good discussion, because we didn't do anything with it, because we didn't know where
This just-
these discussions would lie.
18 pages. I mean, it's, yeah, it's, I mean, the ADA's got an entire section on the website, because we've dealt with this with the sheriff's office. People want to bring their dogs in and like I said, yeah, you can't even ask, it's HIPAA. it's all protected.
You can put up signs and hope that that discourages some people
Yeah.
from bringing in animals willy-nilly. But if they,
Is it common?
Or-
that happens?
just a week or two ago, we had a taxpayer that came up on our floor to
Yeah.
deal with something at the assessor's office and brought her little precious pup and it pooped in the floor right in front of our office. Great, that's cool. She cleaned
there
it
was
up.
a dog attack, and that's the reason
She
why
cleaned it up.
attacking some other dogs, and so that's the reason why this was brought up.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
Not a I think anything that was hurt
Yeah,
a
that's-
lot, but that's the reason. It was enough to where the presenting judge
Yeah.
requested us to discuss it. So we just want to be respectful to those requests, but
To me, that's a
I think probably
BOCC
BOCC
because
too.
they're your buildings.
And ask, is the animal required because of a disability, and then you ask what task the dog or the animal has been trained to do. That's it. So, yeah, you can say no pets. I mean, that's probably the easiest thing to do is just put signs up that says no pets, no animals allowed. Well, you don't have to talk about the exception for ADA because it's already there. Someone brings it in, it's a service animal.
If you say pets, that means non-service animals.
It's a weird thing. I've experienced in a few different places that I've been involved with.
Yeah.
And it's again, there's somebody that, attends a local church in Oklahoma City, and this guy brings in this insanely aggressive dog, and again, he's got some Velcro stickers that says it's a service dog, and it's clearly not. And I don't know what you do with it.
okay. Well,
Well,
since-
should we just
since
strike
they
this item then,
since
or
they requested us to
recommend
discuss
to
it.
the BOCC that we have a sign that says no pets?
I don't think it needs to be that formal.
Okay.
I really. I just think that you guys just, whatever you guys decide. And it may be, whatever the DA determines. I think
Take
that's,
no action.
like Brandon said, part of ADA.
I have no issue with that.
Thank
No
you,
action.
but thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah.
No problem.
They did request us to.
Thank you. Sorry, I skipped over it. Item 7. Leanne, great work. I was talking about everybody on the I went through it just in a brief fashion. I found a couple of deals. I think there's a conflict in section 4.2 where it's eligibility, full-time, where you define full-time as scheduling work. Full-time, it's defined employee as full-time if he or she is scheduled to work an average of 30 or more hours per week. And in section 212, let me get to that. It defines full-time as 40 hours.
I think I noticed some of those myself.
So, these are just things that we as a group need to find as we go through this.
Yeah, so like on that one, I actually noticed that as well. My assumption on that one is that 212 is what we consider a full-time employee at the county. However, in the, you said it's 4.7,
4.2.
4.2, I would imagine that's specifically related to employee benefits.
Yeah.
So back in, I think that's that might be yeah, but I can't remember when that's not always been the case.
No, it's not.
It's been-
It's an ACA.
I think it was somewhere around, probably like around maybe the Obama era or something like that, but I know that changed somewhere in there, that anybody that works on an average of 30 weeks a month, you have to offer health benefits and or pay, the penalty associated with it. So maybe just clarifying those two.
Yeah.
Names.
And the other thing I caught, like I said, we just got this out. Within the
There's
last
probably tons of things that could be brought
48
here.
hours.
So.
there. Well, you got it out for your everything.
So there, you could just, on that second sentence, insert, for benefit eligibility purposes only, an employee is full-time if he or she is scheduled to work. So that way it's clear that you're
Yeah.
only talking benefit eligibility.
Yeah, so honestly, where the issue becomes for me is the 30 hours makes sense, but like for the law enforcement 171, that's not true. So there was no exemption in that ACA Act so the 171 is a threshold. It's on fact sheet 7 in the Fair Labor Standards where it says where it qualifies the overtime thresholds for law enforcement for those that work under that 207K exemption I mentioned earlier for 28-day cycles. So, but still, regardless of the number of hours within 28 days, if they still work on average of 30, they still qualify for benefits. So it's kind of a weird.
And benefits start, your vacation benefits and sick benefits start day one,
They have to.
right?
That's a state thing. Yeah.
But you don't start getting the other things until 60
Yeah.
days after the source of the month,
Yeah.
60 days later. So that needs to be clarified as well. So keep that in mind. So I'm just pointing out
Yeah.
little softball things here real quick.
So maybe say for insurance benefit requirements and employees.
I do think I saw the 60-day hold. I don't remember seeing the. Yeah, actually, in 4.2 there was. It talks about qualifications for benefits begins on the first of the month following the 60 days of employment. So it's really not even 60 days. So like technically, if you start on the 15th of the month, you've got that full 60 days plus an additional 15 because you don't start until the first of that next month. So in that case, you'd have a 75-day wait. So it's kind of a.
That needs clarification. Jump over to 5.1 real quick. Like I said, I'm just throwing out softballs here.
Yeah.
And not criticizing any work.
Go right ahead.
It talks about 12 holidays per calendar year. It's an absolute statement. The thing is, this year there's
Yeah,
13.
it changes, yeah.
So that fluctuates. I'll give you a real good example. Maybe this year or next year. I think it's this year. The state is taking off Wednesday and Thursday or something like that. The county is taking off Thursday and Friday. Well, we have judges
We've had that issue with Judge John.
that work for the state, basically. Right? So if they're off Wednesday,
Their bailiffs also work.
I'm pretty sure the commissioner, when he was chairman, had to rectify that somehow.
Yeah.
I think we ended up getting a free day off, if I'm not mistaken.
so the state holiday conflicts. So if the judges come back on Friday, the county employees are off. The courthouse has to be open, deputies have to be here to secure the building, and the court clerk has to be. But we're told we have a day off. So that's something that needs to be ironed out. That's a commissioner's deal. But just going to that deal, sometimes we get 12 holidays, sometimes we get 13, and there may be a year where, who knows, they're probably gonna be, God bless Donald Trump Day, and everybody gets a day off. I'm not making a political statement, it's just it happened. So, that's, we can't put that in as an
We just need to define it, to say as defined, by year
as decided by the Board of County.
Board of County Commissioners.
But just so commissioners, you guys know, there is a conflict between the state, it's either this year or next year. I think it's this year. Where the state gets Wednesday, Thursday off for Christmas, and the county goes Thursday.
I thought when that happened a couple of years ago, somebody made the rule that they just had to always match, that they couldn't be different. Maybe that was just hearsay. That's what I heard because I was in the courthouse at that time. And there was discussion like, oh, well, y'all are off these days, but we're off these days. And
If it was Christmas, and they made an exception to it. But the statute is clear, and the thing is, it's not the Board of County Commissioners that are gonna determine the days, but Board of County Commissioners have discretion in which days they actually choose, but they are from a prescribed list in statute. So the state can have certain days that the county may not. The county may have certain days that the state doesn't, as long as it's in from the larger prescribed pool of options for holidays.
But yeah, this
So we'll
whole,
review it, but that just needs to state as defined.
this, I mean, a lot of this just came obviously directly from this whole.
Sure,
handbook.
sure.
And it says a total of 12 holidays per calendar year, so, you know, there could be, as I was looking at the old handbook, I often thought, I wonder if that's still right, or I wonder if that, you know, I just wondered. That might have been one I wondered about, but I didn't have enough information at the time to, I was like, it's in this book, I'll just leave it.
So here's an example though. The first paragraph being employee timesheets will be centrally updated to account for granting and use of paid holidays. Why does that need to be in the handbook?
I don't know. Good question.
I mean, that's what I was saying is like an owner's manual. There's just, I mean, that under holidays could just say, you know, the county recognizes holidays as prescribed in section such and such of Oklahoma statute and will be adopted by the Oklahoma County Board of Commissioners by such and such date each year. To find, to view those, they're available on the county website.
I think there's actually a statute that specifically tells the commissioners when they have to do it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I think it's in Title 19.
It's probably the same. I think it's that brief, yeah. Is that the one that's already listed?
Yeah.
19.
So
15.
They're
So
saying,
we just
there's
review
still more that could be.
all of these on an individual basis and then make recommendations on either changes that need to be made to your version or additions that were not included or things that we can take out.
Can we just bring a computer in here and work on
Yeah,
it
that's
together
what we'll do.
rather than individually?
That's fine for me.
That's what we'll do, and we're not
That
gonna
way we
tackle
can
it all in one 3-hour marathon setting. We're gonna bite the elephant one bite at
I brought
Just usually.
a copy.
a time.
I have various things here, but
Bring a computer
every
every time.
we'll
Yeah,
all go through it.
I was just gonna show an example. Because Christy had said, well, you know, can we do this comparative, you know, here's, and mark through like we do
Right.
when we're just making a tiny change. But it gets so like, well, no, I shouldn't like that since I'm getting it to you. I'm sorry. I mean, it just gets really, really, a lot of marking through. So I don't know that that's really workable to say we want to change it from this to this. Did you?
well,
Because it's just so much. And you can see, like, on this one, for example, the ones in black where it says military leave unpaid. Well, it went ahead and defined that. I'm like, well, that's defined already somewhere else. So, you know, those, I just took that out because it's like, well, that's already part of the handbook somewhere else. It tells what that is. So that, you know, a lot of this was just, you know, whack, 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 just because it was redundant. But still, it would be hard to, I don't know if you could submit, like, here's what it was and here's what we're marking through and changing it to. Is that required to make this?
It has been done in the past.
I think what'll happen is we'll submit it, I'll do a DA opinion request. And what I have to do is show them side by side, what was and what is, just like contract, right? I mean, what their contract. So they need to see what was there and what are we proposing. So,
Well, I don't feel like there's anything sacred about this. you know, that I did. I just, you know, like I said, it was randomly here and there.
Right.
Just kind of my English teacher hat on, and
Sure.
like, oh, that's repetitive. Oh, that's redundant. Oh,
That's
that
very
was
helpful.
whatever. And just,
We appreciate
I didn't
everything you did.
have a lot of cohesive, like, thought that went into all of it.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
So-
So I guarantee you there are still things that could be deleted. You know, I found something, just, you know, just some wording. I can't.
While you're searching, I think our goal should be to have this wrapped up in the next few months. If we can meet a month. When we have 4 people here, we can't do it, darn. So we need at least 5. And we try to get, I know Christian Ray had somebody tugging on it, and she couldn't be here, Jill Black, the workhorse, and couldn't make it. So he's busy with other things, but we love Joe and need him here. It'd be great to have him here because he's really good at this stuff.
Can you send us the revised one where you actually made those edits, with the red line one?
Well, I didn't do it for the whole thing.
Oh,
I
okay.
just pulled out a few sections just to see what it would look like. And like,
Because, well, this is like whenever we have our policy governance meeting, we're going through and trying to determine, that way we can see what changes are made, and then we can also, when we get the DA opinion,
yeah,
that would be helpful.
I mean,
If
that
we
would
went
be,
by section, so we know what was eliminated and what wasn't.
that
and
would
then
probably
adopt it as
take
we
me a
go.
while to find times when I could just,
Yeah.
you know, because I basically ended up having to do it just section by section, because if you just did this handbook versus this handbook, it marks out everything, because it just doesn't get, you know, oh, well, that maybe got moved, or it just, it overwhelmed the system. I think.
That's the sales job, if you will, that we need to do once we have a final product and deliver to the DA, and once we get it back, make sure we're okay with changes that they may suggest, then we present to the budget. My goal would not be to take it from the budget board during the budget, finalizing of the budget in May.
Hey, Rick, have you guys thought about looking at SHRM? Because I know that's like the HR credential thing, right?
Yeah.
And they've got a handbook builder, they've got like a free builder and then a customized one that you can pay for. But I would think that if we utilized something like that, then any updates to DOL standards, all that kind of stuff, would be a lot easier for that stuff to be updated, because I'm sure, without doing research, I'm sure that they would make those updates and push them out to the document, because then it would be available online and print version and all that. So that may be something that this group wants to take a look at, is looking at the SHRM template to be able to, I mean, they're the experts, right?
What is it? Society of Human
HR.
Resource Management.
Yeah, and
There's
SHRM.
term.
Christy Ray, I'm sure, is a member of that. I joined it last year.
She's actually going to the school right now.
So, it's a great group, and yeah, it'd be great to get updates from them. I stopped taking their emails, but they send them out every day.
So you guys may want to look at that website and
That's a
see,
good
because you may want to just
What's
start over from there. SHRM,
SHRM.
sure.
Yeah, it's, my daughter's an HR person for a group out of Atlanta, Crawford and Associates, and she's an expert, and I constantly call her for tips and stuff, so it's a great resource, thank you, Cody.
I'm sure their stuff's been vetted legally as well.
Yeah, nationally. But so, just so you know, the goal, best case scenario, I would hope, do one section a meeting. Are there 5 total sections or 6? 6. Let's say June is our worst case. I'd like to start off the year with branding, fiscal year with branding. Handbook, plain, spiffy, precise, concise, efficient, and legally acceptable. especially two.
Section 1's 2 paragraphs, so we could probably look it up.
Yeah, so maybe
We'll do
the
that now.
best case scenario, maybe the best case scenario is, but let's get it done. And then we can meet when, if laws change, which, good Lord, their executive orders are gone, but with the federal laws, the state law updates, then we can start meeting quarterly or perhaps even once a year. But this is the hard work. This is shoulder to the grindstone. We've got a great group, and it's going to be. I don't like it, but it needs to be done. And Mark Cycle and Cody and Brandon, those of us who were here that endured the past 6 years or 7 or whatever, God bless us.
Yes.
So if this group can get it done, let's do it as soon as possible. That's my encouragement. So
So you're talking about the sales job. I mean, like when I started fiddling with this, it was really just because I got put in this committee. And so I pulled up the handbook and I didn't really know what to expect, and except that something about revising the handbook. So I just started reading through it, and I just, as an old English, I mean, I just can't help myself. You know?
We value that.
Especially if I have a pen in my hand, I'd be like, oh, well, that's, you know, that's redundant. That's, you know, oh, blah, blah. You know, just marking, just out of habit almost.
It's common core English.
But, you know, I don't have some passion really to change the handbook. It's just, I would, if it was up to me, I would change it. But what would be the other side of the argument? If somebody said, we should leave this exactly as it is with all of these details and all of these examples.
I
don't think
If you're
I don't think
The
anyone wants
philosophy,
that.
it was the philosophy of people that were on this board, because some of them felt like we needed, instead of just saying what time it is,
Explanation.
we built the watch. They covered every scenario.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not defending in one way or the other. But we've hit this one back and forth both ways. But you know, when it boils down to, I mean, you've got as Brandon says and Cody says, and we all know, you know, there's some basic state statutes and there's some federal statutes that say thou shalt. And then the rest of it is what your boss say.
Right.
And if you're fired, you're fired.
You asked me a question earlier about, you know, should the policies be more detailed, should they not? I can only speak for my world, but I assume it's similar to others as well. But in my world, for example, even if we have a policy that's written down, but let's say hypothetically there's a known practice that contradicts the policy, they will absolutely take the known practice. And the argument is always that either the administration either knew or should have known that this known practice was happening. And so it's kind of one of those weird deals that, you know, to where you almost policy yourself into a corner. You know, I mean, and we obviously need those. I mean, we've got like 140 of them for the sheriff's office that are totally independent of this stuff. So, you know, and then we had the jail, there's like 400 or something. You know, it's bonkers. You know, but several times we would come into situations where there was a known practice happening that was contrary to the policy, and it was almost always determined that just superseded the policy because, again, supervision knew that it was happening. And so that's one of those, and I don't know if that applies everywhere. I mean, he would probably be able to, but that happens all the time. And
Well, it goes back to the boss.
you know, and we see that, like even in training and stuff that I participated online or even at various conferences and stuff, it almost always comes back to that. I mean, you know, you got a policy, but what's the actual practice that's being, you know, and so.
Well, yeah, and one of the reasons why I just was thinking about that as I was processing some of this is because, you know, you hear about politicians, you know, not that anybody in this room is a politician, you know, that they try to be vague because they don't want anybody to be able to pin them down on what they said. So they try to, you know, just be as vague and sort of out there as they can, because if they give a lot of specific details, that's when somebody can come and say, but you said this. So I just wondered, for legalities purposes, is it better to be a little vague so that somebody can't be, but your handbook says this, and then, or do we want it to be really specific? And we want to be held to some really specific details.
Well,
That's what I'm wondering.
I guess more so what I meant, maybe these are specific examples. Let's say that the policy says that all of our civilians have to work 40 hours, but the supervisor is forcing them to work 42 hours, let's say, with no compensation. And it gets litigated, and they come back, and we say, well, our policy says we're going to work on 40 hours, so that's what's happening. I mean, every single time they're going to say, well, yeah, but the practice is you do it for 42, so what you got in writing is useless. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So I kind of get back to circle back around again. I mean, it's in that particular case, what we had written down, yeah, it didn't matter to the outcome of the lawsuit. Because
There
it was
was,
being violated, and they said, well, yeah, sure, it's,
to your point, Brendan, there was one lawsuit at one point where I believe your sheriff's deputies were told you had a meeting, you'd be here 30 minutes
Before shift.
before shift. And that was settled, and taxpayers paid for it. Because supervisor said, you gotta be here in 30 minutes before your shift starts, because it'd be for a briefing. Well, they should have been paid for that. Wasn't in the handbook. So, there's things like that that have happened. They even happened in District 3 where Gerald, who was the guy out there, had his guys come in for briefing. Yeah, it works.
That's Gerald.
Gerald Wright. Great human being. But we paid for it.
so,
Eventually.
so the goal is just to essentially just give us some homework. We'll come through these things and then go back and talk about it.
Yep. And we'll tackle them one section at a time.
Yeah.
That'd be
You-
good.
you-
So we'll know in advance. We can all think about that particular section before we get here,
If you find something that,
and sit here with a computer and.
Yeah, it would be
Yeah.
beneficial if we had a computer so we
It-
could make those adjustments.
if we
as
can
we're-
get it in I'm sure it's in a Word document, can you send that to Cassie? That's how you
Is
send
it
it?
something that we can put on the screen and edit as we go?
If someone else would like to drive and make those edits, yes, that would be fine.
Okay, I just think whatever we could do while we're here and then continue moving forward.
So what are we gonna work with the one that
That's my question.
we have right now and make changes to that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Let's do it.
so we need the old, this one.
118 pages.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, I appreciate your time, but I think we can't see what changes you
Right,
made and
right,
where
right.
to start, but we can refer
Right.
back to what you had
Yeah.
drafted and
Right.
attached to this agenda.
Doesn't matter to me.
Well, I do appreciate your time.
That's
but
So you do
we
want
need-
to start with 118.
We need to start with the 118 days,
So,
because I don't know what changes and what you're in.
that's fine, sure. I get blurry-eyed.
Whatever. I don't know, there's-
Anybody who reads legislation,
Do you have it?
and you see all the structures, there's a lot of that.
Yes.
So,
Is there someone that wants to volunteer to bring their computer to, I don't have
I mean, I
laptop.
have the Word document for the handbook. This was put on to the drive, November 6th of 24.
Can we edit it from there?
Yes, you
Okay.
can. Someone else will,
We'll have to type.
yes. And we can
Okay.
save it here
So it's
also.
already
And I
Leanne,
can
would
access
you
it.
like to edit while we have our meetings? Since you're
Good.
the English teacher.
I don't know if I'm the fastest typist.
Okay.
Reasonably decent, but not great.
I just want to make sure.
all right, thank you for your input. There's no action except homework.
When's our next meeting?
Thank you, teacher.
Do we
What
wanna-
are you
we don't have
assigning?
minutes.
Everybody look at sections 1 and 2 and come back next.
Do we want to call in our meeting or discuss when our next meeting will
We'll let you know. I'll get with her because unaware, they've got a zillion meetings that they try to manage, so I'll get with Cassie. It'll be mid to late March. Hopefully not during spring break.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't mess with spring break.
We'll get together and talk about all our meetings are special meetings this year. But we have to, you guys, the commissioner's offices you guys are always meeting, so that's why I get with Cassidy and try to find a hole to put a little fit in. And then the assessors can be having all their stuff coming up with all the people who don't like their assessments. So we'll figure it out.
That never.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I've seen these guys while we were off on snow days were sending me agendas and stuff. So, and you guys do very good. All right, any citizen participation?
Thank you, Cody.
Seeing none, motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne.
No,